Good morning, everybody. On behalf of the town of Marana and farmers across our great state of Arizona, I'd like to welcome everybody here. I'd like to thank Secretary Rollins for being here, Administrator Laughlin for being here. Did I get that right? I apologize if I... Loeffler? There. Okay. Sorry about that. And, our great Congressman Juan Ciscomani. So thank those individuals for making this happen today. I'm really excited to, hear some of the things that are going to be proposed today, rolled out today. It's exciting for agriculture, exciting for cotton, small business in our great state and our great country. And so without further ado, I'll turn it over to somebody else.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I think I'm going first.
You go first.
Right.
You go first, and I'll stand right here.
That sounds great. Well, first of all, everybody, I'm Brooke Rollins. I am the 33rd Secretary of Agriculture. What a joy to be here in this part of the country. My dearest friend, Administrator Kelly Loeffler with the Small Business Administration, and of course, your extraordinary Congressman Juan Ciscomani. We just finished a great roundtable with some of the very best Americans I'll ever meet, and those are your farmers and ranchers in this part of the country. So again, what a joy it is. We have a big announcement to make on cotton specifically, so I'm going to read those remarks so that I don't miss anything very, very important. But then we'll have the congressman speak and Administrator Loeffler speak, and then we'll open it up for any questions. But again, I just want to say on behalf of President Trump, our entire cabinet, we had a wonderful cabinet meeting yesterday, and all of those who are working every day to make America great again. And from my perspective, to make agriculture great again, and I'd not speak for Kelly, but to make small business great again, it really is just such a blessing and an honor to be here. Last week, we hit the 15-month mark in our administration, a little over a year, as we're working around the clock to deliver real results for Americans. Already, President Trump has secured over 24 new trade deals, cutting our inherited $50 billion forecasted agricultural trade deficit by nearly 42%. And just to put that into context, the 4 years of the last administration, not one new trade deal was reached for our farmers and ranchers in agriculture. And when we left, there was an agricultural trade surplus. So big, massive wins just in this first year. We have delivered more than $30 billion in timely assistance to our farmers as they have continued to face massive headwinds over the last number of years, but also, and important to this state, have combated pest and disease threats like highly pathogenic avian influenza for our egg farmers, and of course New World screwworm for our cattle ranchers being top of mind here. By reforming the adverse effect wage rate, talking about the H-2A program, we have lowered labor costs by up to $2 billion annually. That's $2 billion that are now in the pockets of our farmers and ranchers, and have transformed our nation's nutrition policy around real food grown by American producers through our Make America Healthy Again agenda. And we can talk more about that in Q&A. Further, President Trump's Working Families Tax Cuts is supported by the House Republicans and under the incredible leadership, including of Congressman Ciscomani, delivered unprecedented wins for our farmers and our ranchers, for our rural communities, by increasing reference prices for the first time in over a decade, adding up to 30 million new base acres for farm safety net programs. That's the first time in a couple decades, and by saving 2 million family farms and ranches from the death tax. And we are leading efforts to drive down the cost of key inputs, including fertilizer, which is of top of mind today for most of our farmers and ranchers. Today, we are expanding our work to restore American dominance for a vital commodity hit hard in recent decades, and that is cotton. Before I get to today's big announcement, I want to mention again how great it is to be here in the Grand Canyon State with such powerful voices for agriculture and for America. I also want to thank Mayor Post for welcoming us here to his beautiful cotton farm and everything, pumpkins, everything he does here. As you know, agriculture is one of your state's largest industries. Arizona has 16,700 farms that contribute $30 billion to the state economy annually and employs more than 160,000 workers just in Arizona alone. Many Arizona farms like the Post here clothe the nation with breathable, natural cotton. In your state, growers planted over 102,000 acres of cotton last year, which produced over 280,000 cotton bales. Arizona is also the third top producer of Pima cotton, one of the highest quality cottons in the world. Nationwide, the cotton sector annually contributes $21 billion and more than 125,000 jobs. As we prepare to celebrate America's 250th birthday, we are reminded that cotton is truly woven into the fabric of our nation's history. For millennia, cotton has been a staple in everyday clothing, fine garments, and dyed tapestries around the globe. In 1607, well before the Revolution and the Declaration, Virginia settlers planted it in their very first garden, and later-day colonists proudly wore homespun cotton as a symbol of American independence. Instead of protecting this heritage, the previous administration turned a blind eye as cotton growers were squeezed by foreign competitors using unfair trade practices. And in 2023, Brazil overtook the United States as the world's top cotton producer. But now we are working to reverse course. Today, USDA is announcing our new Great American Cotton Plan, consisting of 4 pillars. First, promoting domestic cotton consumption. In partnership with other federal agencies, we are starting a plant, not plastic initiative that will educate consumers and potential customers on the benefit of natural fibers. Our MAHA strategy report last year unveiled and included an evaluation by HHS and EPA, our dear friends Bobby Kennedy and Lee Zeldin, on the risks associated with microplastics and synthetics in our clothing, of which are mostly and often in foreign competitors to American cotton. As again, Bobby and Lee Zeldin and I work together to better understand those risks, working for the first time to really dig in on this. We are being forward-leaning and promoting the American cotton industry as the alternative. USDA is also ensuring our bio-preferred program remains funded after a funding lapse under the last administration, so that products made from cotton can continue to use the bio-preferred label, helping to create further market demand. We are also ensuring that cotton's increased marketing loan rates for upland cotton are fully implemented this summer per the Working Family Tax Cuts Act that, again, the Hill was so instrumental, and Congressman Siscomani at the front. Number 2, we are providing affordable cotton by increasing domestic demand and production. Through the Working Families Tax Cuts, we reauthorized the Pima Agricultural Cotton Trust Fund through 2031 and are providing domestic manufacturers and associations with $16 million in annual support. Also increasing the payment rate in the Economic Adjustment Assistance for Textile Mills, the EAATM program, helping American cotton mills upgrade their facilities so, again, we can be more competitive on the world stage. Number 3, we are improving the cotton trade worldwide. We are finally opening up new global markets for American cotton and revitalizing export finance opportunities. One tangible example is our work with the U.S. Trade Rep, our good friend Jamison Greer and his team, where Indonesia has agreed to import at least 163,000 metric tons of U.S. cotton annually for the next 5 years, and then maintain a minimum level of at least 150,000 metric tons. This is Indonesia alone. And through the Cotton USA licensing program, our marketing assistance program, or access program, MAP, is leveraging over $13 million in additional funding in this year alone to drive global demand and reassert America's global cotton dominance. We're also supporting legislative efforts to boost cotton. We love the Buy America Cotton Act that Senator Hyde-Smith and so many others have been advocating for, including the congressman, to ensure that we're doing everything we can in Congress to codify these ideas so that when the Trump administration leaves in about 2.5 years, hopefully this great work will continue. And number 4, finally, we are protecting cotton growers from adverse risks. There are so many variables to consider on the farm, and serious yield losses due to foreign pests should not be one of them. With the new cotton jassed pest spreading through the U.S., our Ag Research Service has already begun research efforts to control it. And when it comes to the farm safety net, starting this Monday in 3 or 4 days, eligible farmers can add up to 30 million new base acres in the ARC, the ARC program, and the PLC, the Price Loss Coverage Program, for the first time in decades. Taken together, the actions under these 4 pillars will make our cotton supply stronger, more affordable, and more secure. And again, what a joy it is to be here. I'm now going to turn it over to Congressman Siscomani for a couple words, then Administrator. The great Administrator Kelly Loeffler, who grew up on a farm herself, 5th generation, to offer some comments, and then we'll open it up for questions. Thank you all so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Secretary. Thank you so much. And what an exciting announcement. Thank you both for being here. I want to thank the press, of course, for covering this and for being here. And I especially want to thank all our friends here behind us that represent industry and representatives and national folks, also state level, and University of Arizona is here. We have friends from all over that care about this issue, and I think that the administrator and the secretary being here is also a great demonstration of the President Trump's administration caring about this. We just had a very successful roundtable. I think you were in there to cover some of it, where we heard issues that, of course, water is always going to be on top of the list for anything that we talk about in Arizona. We had actually made a quick little list here to not forget anything. H2A and labor, that was a big topic of conversation as well. We know that well here in this area, land and actually specifically forest land, fertilizers, the Mexican great wolf, and the value of having generational families still operating these farms, and to make it in a way that is both affordable and possible for families to continue the family tradition and the culture that we have in this nation and the value that we have for agriculture, farming, and ranching. So this has been a very important conversation here. The announcement that the Secretary just read is another demonstration of this administration's and this Congress's priority on how we're going to drive this forward and continue to take care of the people that feed us every single day. We can take back that dominance in owning this area and then surpass all those that have surpassed us in the last few years in producing and exporting what we make best. No one makes it better than us, safer than us, and more efficiently than us, and we need to maximize that. So with that, Administrator, thank you so much for being with us. Please.
Thank you, Congressman. Thank you. Great remarks. Thank you. And I want to thank the Congressman for his hard work on the working family tax cuts. Farmers and ranchers are America's original small business. And it's important to remember that from a policy perspective, that every single Democrat in Congress, your colleagues, voted against this working family tax cut that penalizes the hardest working American people without its passage. So appreciate your hard work and your leadership on that for small businesses and for our farmers and ranchers. I am grateful to Secretary Rollins, who has really given agriculture in this country a new level of visibility and urgency. Her tireless work, I see it in the White House. It's probably one of the most common meetings I attend in the White House is to talk about agricultural issues. It's something I'm passionate about. As she mentioned, 5 generations, a 90-year-old row crop farm, cattle, and we know how important our rural communities are, and small business administration, and it's an incredible honor to serve as the 28th administrator of the Small Business Administration, largely because I grew up in a small business. I grew up working for small businesses. I've started small businesses. And certainly here in Arizona, they're absolutely vital. Over 706,000 small businesses make up about half of the state's employment. So they're absolutely vital, particularly in rural communities. Last year, the SBA put out $7 billion to rural communities. We just announced our 90% loan guarantee program called the Grocery Guarantee, aimed at producers, ranchers, logistics, warehouses, to make sure access to capital is not the gating factor in opening up supply and lowering food prices, but raising the ability of farmers to compete on a world stage and restore our agriculture dominance, because as Brooke has said, agriculture security is national security. We're also working hard on deregulation, whether it's diesel exhaust fluid. We've worked with USDA and EPA, right to repair, other issues impacting rural America. And then finally, reindustrialization. I think most manufacturers in America meet the small business definition. We've been talking about having more fertilizer production in this country. That starts certainly in rural America, whether it's potash or ammonia. So this is a transformative administration because President Trump believes in the American farmer and the urgency of addressing these issues. So again, I want to thank Secretary Rollins for her great leadership on this, and appreciate the opportunity really to be with these great folks behind us today. This is all about them and their leadership in local communities and what they mean to America, certainly here in Arizona, but all across the country. Their importance can't be overstated. So thank you all for coming out and your attention to this really critical issue at this time.
Thank you, Kelly. Well said. Beautifully said. All right, we'll take any questions.
Let's begin with Kyla at KOLD. Hi. So under the BLM recommendation, lower basin states receive 40% of the Colorado River water allotment. How are farmers here in Marana and in Arizona in general expected to, grow cotton with, droughts and with such a close supply of water?
I can just accept that. Yeah, so Secretary Bergen covered some of this when he was here a few weeks ago. These negotiations are not final yet. What we've seen so far in the allocation is troubling for Arizona. We've talked about that. We've been very clear, and we have an open line of communication with the administration on this. We have to work with the upper basin states, and the lower basin states have to work together. We need help from the Senate as well. This is something that the House, specifically in Arizona, we've been carrying because of the positive relationship that we have with the White House. However, we need senators to step up as well, including both of our Arizona senators that have chosen to have an adversarial relationship with the White House as opposed to a working one. So that impacts the negotiations, of course, and that goes for every lower basin state. So there's more work to be done here, and more players at the table that need to be focusing on this as well.
And I'll add to that. I'm sorry, I'll add to that very quickly. In the roundtable, we had cattle ranchers, we had cotton farmers, we had dairy farmers, we had a pistachio farmer. I mean, we sort of covered it, and everyone had a different issue, from generational farming to labor but almost every single person mentioned water as really the existential issue here. And as I travel for the farming and ranching community, and as I've traveled the whole country, this is my first trip to Arizona, but as I've traveled the whole country, different parts of the country have different key issues, but hearing firsthand how important this is, how scary it is, my commitment to the farmers and ranchers at this roundtable is that I'm going to go back to Washington and really lean in for the farmers and ranchers of this state and get more involved. It's obviously not a USDA question, but I work so very closely with Doug Burgum at the Department of the Interior, our entire team in the cabinet. It is an unprecedented family of we all love and respect each other, and we all work together very closely. So I'm going to be leaning in more on this too, and have already gotten emails on how to get more educated on what's happening and how I can help. Yeah.
Let me add one more thing on that. This is the number one issue for us, right? This is not ever historically for Arizona, and it shouldn't be ever, a political issue that divides up the left and the right. This is a survival issue for Arizona. So we all have to be at the table. We all have to come together to be able to do this. That's why I'm not surprised this is the first question that comes up. Mm-hmm. When Secretary Bergen was here from Interior, that was the first question to come up, and the second and the third as well. So these are the things that we have to be focusing on. As the Secretary mentioned, practically everybody that spoke at this roundtable touched on water. Mm-hmm. It is our lifeline and how we operate in every single sense. We've been responsible historically, proud of that. As we've always mentioned, we've built the sixth largest city in the country in the middle of the desert in Maricopa County because we've been responsible with water. We have a history and a tradition of that. We're going to continue to do that, and I'm hoping that we can continue to work with the administration and they can see that as well, and I'm sure they will, so that we can move this forward.
Yeah, excellent.
I've got kind of a two-part question having to do with China. Some of my colleagues have spoken with farmers who said that the retaliatory tariffs from China really hurt them, and China started buying from competitors like Brazil and others. With the recent trip with Trump to China, is that market opening back up? Have you found new markets to kind of, if not fully replace, kind of step in there? And secondly, since the tariffs were deemed illegal by the Supreme Court, have ranchers and farmers here started to receive their refunds for those tariffs?
Well, the first question, I will respond very happily. It's a great opportunity to explain a little bit more. So under the first term, the president recalibrated trade around the world. It was an unprecedented, I was part of the conversation in the first term. I was in the West Wing with the president, and that deal, that China Phase 1 and Phase 2 deal, opened up markets that had never been opened up before, for especially our row croppers, but really for everybody. Cattle ranchers, the offal that goes over, OFFAL, the tongues and the lungs, things that we don't eat here, were part of all of that. And it was a really good and extraordinary win for our farmers and ranchers. This Biden administration came in. They did not hold China to the terms of the deal. There was not one new trade deal struck. And all of a sudden you see massive losses of market opportunity for soybean, for corn, for ethanol, for cotton, for all of the above. Not one new trade deal struck, and the deals that were struck were not held to when we left. We come back, as I mentioned, 4 years later, and we had an agricultural trade surplus when we left in early 2021. We came back to, 4 years later, a $50 billion predicted agricultural trade deficit. Again, not one new trade deal struck in 4 years. Within 1 year, we've cut that by 40%. We have unprecedented amounts of dairy. Now, soybean, as China has started buying soybeans again about a year ago. Sorghum's now moving out into the world. I mentioned, I don't know if it was in these comments, but inside, I did mention in the comments, the Eastern Asia opportunity for cotton especially, but for all of these row crops, again, is unprecedented. The China deal that was agreed to last week included the 25 metric tons of soybean and sorghum and others, but in addition, an additional $17 billion in agricultural trade purchases in this new deal that was struck with China. This is, again, unprecedented, and it allows us, it allows me, it allows our administration to go out into the world, or specifically to China in this case, but into the world, and begin to sell more cotton, et cetera, et cetera. So I believe that these markets that are opening up are going to solve, in large part, a lot of the challenges our farmers and the farm economy has faced, especially in the last 5 years. The cost of inputs skyrocketed at 40% on average, and then, of course, you have no new trade deals. It's a perfect storm. You combine that with the domestic markets we're working to open up with year-round E15, et cetera, and I think you'll see a big change coming, in addition to the reference prices and others that were in the one big, beautiful bill, the Working Families Tax Cut. As to the second part of your question, we're working through exactly what that means and what it looks like. We had a conversation about it yesterday at the cabinet meeting in Washington, D.C. Jameson Greer is perhaps the most impressive trade expert I've ever been around and understands this in every country like the back of his hand. And so we're looking right now at the different tools that we can use on the tariff, what this looks like in the next steps moving forward.
Jim with the Tucson Senate.
Arizona has led the way in removing people from the SNAP program.
Mm-hmm.
Is this what I think 400,000 have lost SNAP benefits? Is this what you were hoping for, and is this the example for the rest of the nation?
Well, I think it's important to level set for a second. So food stamps is the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. It is there as a supplemental for families that are struggling. No one would argue that it isn't an important program, but under the Biden administration, there was a 40% increase in the amount of assistance going out, 40% increase. These numbers were unsustainable. The other thing that's really important about this, the SNAP program is a program that is federally funded, but that the states manage. So previous to last February, we would send out $100 billion a year, almost $400 million a day in nutrition assistance from USDA, not just SNAP, but school lunches, et cetera. $400 million a day. That number is sort of astounding if you think about it. And what would happen is the money would go out, the states would administer it, but there was no accountability. And so last February 13th, the very first thing I did, I sent a letter to every one of our 50 governors, great governors in this country. I asked them to partner with us on accountability. All the red states, the red governors, plus 2 blue governors said, yes, we want to partner with you. We want to figure out where there is fraud in the system. And so we got that data, started getting it late last spring. We found from just the red states, plus North Carolina and Colorado were the 2 blue governors that participated, not Arizona. We found 200,000 dead people, actually live people using dead people's social security numbers, but 200,000 dead people getting assistance. We found 500,000 people getting more than one benefit when they should only get one. We've made almost 1,000 arrests from the retailer perspective of retailers that are fraudulently cooking the books, if you will. And this is just the red states, for the most part, that are already arguably more fiscally responsible, not necessarily Arizona, but versus a California or a New York or an Illinois. In that period of time, we have seen wage rates go up. We've seen more people working today than ever before. So as we have moved about 4 million people off of SNAP, we don't have the exact data, how much of that is fraud, how much of that is people just moving into the American dream and off of the welfare programs. But we think it's probably pretty significant that, yes, this is the goal. And when we hear so much pushback that, well, y'all, why are you moving? Why are you kicking people off? If you are, and by the way, one of the most important pieces of the One Big Beautiful Bill of the Working Families Tax Cut was requiring able-bodied adults without small children at home to actually look for a job or perhaps work 15 or 20 hours a week to continue on that program. I say all of that because these programs should not be a handout. They should be a hand up. And that's what we're really looking to focus on. So I don't have the Arizona SNAP numbers firsthand, but I will say I'm really proud of the work that's happened to date. Under old SNAP, it's called broad-based categorical eligibility. You show up with an electric bill and you basically immediately start getting food stamps. That's not fair to the hardworking men and women standing behind me who pay taxes, to all of the taxpayer, and frankly, it's not fair to the families who really need these programs, who are maybe being elbowed out or not eligible because of all of the fraud that's there. So we're working really hard on fixing that program. I'm proud of what we've done so far, but there's more coming. Thank you for the question.
We're running out of time. Last question, Clint with Live the Dream Media.
Hey, thank you three for being here, but I actually have a question for the mayor.
All right. Oh, the mayor. Let's go.
Mayor got picked on.
I was hiding.
Yeah, you were. How important is it to you as a farmer here in southern Arizona to have these three species on?
You know, that's thank you. That's a great question. You know, unfortunately, it has to be a little political. I've never had anybody seem to care about agriculture before this. In fact, I was talking with somebody earlier. This is the first time that we've ever had any representation. I know Congressman Siscomani has been out here many, many times and actually brought people from, cabinet positions, and it's been great. So, I appreciate having them here today and listening to us and being able to go around the room. And my neighbor.
Said all the great stuff right there.
Being able to go around the room and talk about the challenges that we face as, family farmers, ranchers. Those challenges are real. They're difficult. So having an administration that is finally, really making that a important part of what they're doing matters a great bit. So
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you.
So we're gonna head over to the John Deere tractors.
We're going to the John Deere tractors.
and also, if I don't take you